Just type on the chat to confirm you can be able to hear me. I have received one confirmation. We are more than two, so that's why I'm asking. I wouldn't like to proceed while others haven't yet connected. So if you can be able to hear me, please confirm. So let me assume that everyone can be able to hear me, and those who can't will reach out and will be able to probably assist. So in yesterday's session, we looked at the overview of our continuing training that is on Oracle Financials and Oracle Supply Chain Management introduction bit. And on it, we happen to look at different terms, whereas we have terms like project manager, DBA, functional consultant, technical. So again, we were able to look at the process of procure to pay, whereby we were able to see how the process of procuring an item in an organization, best practice, should be handled. Then we managed to be able to look at the flow, and we had a graphical kind of diagram that could illustrate more of what we expect to see in the system. So this is the cycle of procure to pay. We call it procure to pay cycle. Or P2P. Is there any question on yesterday's session before we proceed to the next bit? Is there any question or someone would like to have a clarity? Therefore, if there is no question, today I want us to go ahead and look at the process of order to cash. And order to cash is the process whereby we will see how a customer sends an order in an organization, and that order gets prepared until goods are shipped to the customer's premise or the customer's end. So I will have an illustration just like yesterday, whereby we have a customer, and our customer here wants to purchase like 10 laptops again. And these 10 laptops, probably they are there in the inventory, or probably they are not there. So the customer will contact the sales department and when the sales department get contacted, this customer will be able to get information whether this item or these laptops that they're interested to purchase are existing or not. Okay. The customer will contact the sales department, and this sales department will, before confirming the customer that the laptops are available for sale, the sales department will record the sales order. We call it the order. They will record the order. But before confirming or before booking the order in the system or in the process of having it under processing so that it can be shipped to the customer, the sales order will contact the inventory department. Sales order will contact the inventory department, confirm whether there is these laptops, and these laptops, once they will be confirmed, the sales order, our sales department will do order booking. So once they do the order booking, this is the same as creating a sales order in the system. Creating a sales order in the system. So the use of an illustration, let us assume this is our inventory store. Okay, and in our inventory store, we don't only have just one warehouse or one store that things have been just put in each and every site, but one cannot be able to trace or maybe to have good retrieval of goods that have been stored. So what happens is, in our inventory, there is sub-inventory. You find there is sub-inventories. Okay. And these sub-inventories looks like something of the sort, like this. Could be this is sub-inventory 1. Okay. And we have another sub-inventory, probably 2. Okay. So under sub-inventory 1, you might find we are storing things like laptops. Okay. Then under sub-inventory 2, we have maybe desktop. Okay. So what happens is, this sub-inventory or these laptops, once the customer order has been booked, these laptops needs now to be processed by the inventory department so that they can be shipped to the customer. So what happens is, under this inventory department, there is a certain area. We usually call it, let me use a different shape. We usually call it, the staging area. Sub-inventory. So this staging area give it a different color. This staging area, what will usually happen is that the moment the order has been booked, there is a communication between the sales department and inventory, which will communicate or inform the inventory department to start preparing a certain item or a certain order so that it can be prepared to be shipped to the customer. So what happened is, once the inventory department receives the information from the sales department, they will be preparing these 10 laptops from the sub-inventory to the staging area. So there must be some movement of goods or items that has been ordered from the sub-inventory to the staging area. It could be laptops, it could be desktops, all these for the purpose of preparation so that it can be shipped to the customer. So the moment these laptops have been prepared and moved from the sub-inventory to the staging area, there is a process that is called peak release. Okay, there's a process that is called peak release that is recorded in the system by the inventory team, telling the sales department that we have moved items from now the sub-inventory to the staging area, and now they are being prepared to be loaded to the vehicle and be shipped to the customer. These key terms are very important because this is what you'll be following, or it's the actual thing that you'll be doing when you'll be processing the sales orders. So the moment this peak release has been done, and now items are at the staging area for the inventory so that they can be loaded in the vehicle. Once they have been loaded into the vehicle and the vehicle is now ready to move, that one we call it ship confirm. Okay, ship confirm is the process of recording that the goods now have moved from the loading area or staging area where they have been loaded so that they can be shipped to the customer. This is the same customer that we are working with, or the same customer that ordered goods. This customer that I've placed here and this one is the same. So don't confuse and say we have two customers. But it's the same customer, it's only that now I started with very close, proximate when it comes to directing with the arrow. So this we call ship confirm. Ship confirm is recording that goods have moved now from the staging area or from our premises moving towards the customer. So what else can happen here is the recording of sales returns. Sales returns. So just like we had purchase returns under the Department of Purchasing in the P2P cycle, now on the sales department order to cash cycle, we have sales returns. Those goods that probably the customer have been delivered to the customer and probably they were in excess or they were not in the requested set conditions by the customer. So the customer will return those goods and will record them as sales returns. When this happens, assuming like probably we have received, we have shipped the items and also we have received the sales returns, the next thing that is being recorded is something that we call receipt. I mean the invoice. You invoice the customer, and also once the customer has received the invoice, they do the payment. So it is very much important to involve a department that we call receivables. Receivables department. Okay. Receivables department will be communicated by the sales department that, hey, there is some shipment we have done of certain goods to customer ABC, and you need to invoice. Here you usually say the primary goal for receivable department is to maintain customer invoices and receipt customer payment. So this is a cycle that has to be communicated, and again, once this one has been done, primarily there is another department that has to be touched as well, which is cash department. Because the moment we start talking about invoicing and payment, cash has to be involved, and that's where the cash department comes in. And with this, we usually do the bank account maintenance, just like we saw it in under payables or under procure to pay cycle. And also we do the bank statement reconciliation. Okay. This cycle, it's very important because the communication has to be done from the cash department saying that we had invoiced this, we have received this, or probably this is what we are expecting to receive, and we have the customer is claiming they have paid, and yet it has not reflected on our bank statement. So we need to do a bank reconciliation so that we can tell whether this amount is on our side or yet it's yet to be realized from the customer. So that is the cash department. Again, all these department, they have to communicate to common department. Common department, just like we saw on the other end, usually do financial reports, or we generate financial reports. So all these department has to communicate to the common department, starting with the sales department. It's a different color. Then we have inventory department. Inventory has to communicate what is pending or what is remaining on the year in the year books. The receivables has to communicate to the common department, telling them, hey, this is all what we have received. And also the cash department has as well to communicate to the common department, telling it that these are the balances that we have in our bank. Is there any question so far? Is there any question? So in a flow kind of diagram, let's see how we can map it. Okay. Okay. So let's assume this is our inventory department, and this is our sales department. This is our receivable department. Here we have our cash department, and here we have our common department. So just like we have said, initially we said under inventory, though we have not mentioned it here, under inventory we usually maintain stock, and we do stock requisition. Okay, and we do stock requisition. So the same case, we can be able to map that information on the same side here of stock maintaining or stock maintenance, sorry. Then we have liquidation, stock liquidation. Okay. Now there must be a communication between the inventory department and sales department so that they can be able to handle this customer with success in terms of the demand that they have received or in terms of the order that they have received. So, and what happens under sales department, there is, we record the order. Okay. We also, once the order has been recorded and we have confirmed that we have that stock of that item in our inventory, we book the order. This is what we are saying, we are calling it, or in other words, in the common person's reference, you might find we are calling it the sales order. Okay. Once the sales order has been booked and it has been prepared by the inventory department, moved from sub-inventory to the staging area, we call it that peak release. We call it peak release. Okay. And once we have done peak release under inventory, now the items is under staging area and we want now to load. Once we have loaded on the vehicle that is supposed to ship that item or those items to the customer's destination, we usually record something we call peak release. Not peak release, but ship confirm. We do ship confirm. After ship confirming, goods will be received on the other end by the customer, and the customer might find maybe probably we have not met the condition that they had maybe placed while booking that order, and may choose to return the sales. So on our end, we usually book or record sales return or sales returns. So that's what happens under the sales department. Assuming that probably that one has been made or has been achieved, the next stage is to communicate to the receivable department that there is some payment that is expected, or there is some sales that has been done to customer ABC, and the receivable department will go ahead and prepare the customer invoice. Call it customer stroke sales invoice. Okay. Once the sales invoice has been booked, of course, it has to be shared with the customer. And once the customer receives the sales invoice, they will do something we call payment. And on our end, we will receipt. We will receipt the customer payment. Okay. We receive the customer payment. So all this information has also to be shared by the cash department, which is responsible of maintaining the bank accounts, and also doing something we call bank statement reconciliation. So it's a communication that has to go concurrently and be communicated to the cash department from the receivable department. Then this information has to flow all the way to the common department for reporting purposes. For reporting purposes, the common department, we do financial reports. We generate financial reports. So basically, it's the flow from inventory department. It communicates with the sales department. Sales department process the sales order and ship goods to the customer department, customer end or destination. And also, they communicate to the receivable department that they have done sales, so that the receivable department can raise a customer invoice so that they can demand payment from the customer. Once the customer receives the customer invoice or sales invoice, they will be liable to do the payment. And the moment they do the payment, on our end, we will record the sales receipt or customer receipt. Then from there, communication has to be done to cash department, and this cash department has to, of course, maintaining the bank accounts which the customer probably paid through, and also do the bank statement reconciliation to see which payments has gone through and which are pending. Again, this information for cash department has to be communicated to the common department, all for the purpose of financial reporting. We have to report the balances that are in our banks through the common department, whereby we can be able to pull or generate financial reports. So in our learning, now we come down from the level of department, the level of application. We have an application that we mentioned yesterday. We call it Oracle Inventory. Okay, abbreviated as INV. All right. Now we are in the level of the application, not in the department level, but you see the application is being used under the department. So again, under sales department, we have an application called Oracle Order Management, okay, abbreviated SOM. Okay. Then under receivable department, we have an application we call Oracle Receivables. Oracle Receivables, abbreviated as AR. Then we have cash department. This one we had seen yesterday. We have it as Oracle Cash, abbreviated as CE. I explained about this, SCE or CM. But mostly when you're working, I would advise you be using CE. Then we have the common department, which said this is general ledger application, or Oracle General Ledger. Let's call it Oracle General Ledger, abbreviated as GL. Is there any question so far?
I think mine is not a question. I'm seeing someone raising a comment on the chat that I don't know if it's he or he.
Combined process or processes. So what I want to show you is how we can combine these two processes so that we can be able to have a high level view of differentiating between the applications that relate mostly with finance and the application that mostly relies or applies to SCM, that is supply chain management. So again, let's use an illustration diagram. Okay. So here we have inventory application, that is Oracle inventory, and then we have the PO. Okay. So we start with the side of procure to pay, that is P2P. Then after P2P, we may have a combination of, here we have cash management, that is CE. Here we have general ledger, that is GL. Here we have AR. Here we have AP. Here here we will have something we call order management. So this is fixed asset. Okay. So what happens is when we are doing the process of booking the item from the, for the purpose of procuring, we have to communicate with inventory department. Okay. And the inventory department has to communicate to the PO department, that is procure or purchasing department. So what happens is we can be able to map this information in a process whereby information is flowing this way. Okay. Then we have communication between the PO and AP. Once the purchase order has been, goods has been received under goods receipt note, and then communication for paying that invoice that will be shared by the supplier to the AP. Then there must be a communication that will be happening when it comes to AP and cash management for the purpose of bank statement reconciliation. Okay. Then again, if there is a communication whereby the purchasing relates to fixed asset, the AP has to communicate to the fixed asset department. Okay. There is a communication that has to happen in the fixed asset department between fixed asset and the AP department or application. So again, all this information has to flow all down to the GL application for the purpose of financial reports preparation. Also, AP has to communicate to GL. Okay. And if you can see, this 5 module, which is the FA, cash management, AP, GL, and AR, these are the modules that relate to finance. These are the modules that relate purely with finance. So again, when it comes to procuring, order to cash, there must be a communication between the inventory and order management. Order management has also to communicate to account receivable, telling them that we have been able to ship confirm this item or these goods from our premises to customer's destination, and now you need to invoice or to bill the customer so that the customer can start the preparation to pay. Then the moment the payment is done, there must be a communication between AR and cash management, whereby the cash management will say that we have received this payment from this customer. Can you check on your end whether you had raised this invoice? And that's where the process of bank reconciliation will come in. Again, all this communication has to be done from AR to GL, showing the number of sales that have been created. So normally, what usually happens is that the inventory and order management and PO, they are not mostly involved in finance. So you will find the PO and inventory and also order management are more, classified outside the finance modules. So you'll find here we maintain stock and we do requisition. Okay. Then here under PO, we said we do RFQs. Okay. Once we receive the quote, we do quote analysis. All right. Once we do the quote analysis and we settle with certain supplier or several suppliers, there are areas of the institutions which you will find they will not just settle with one supplier, but they will settle with several suppliers that they can interchange for the purpose of maintaining openness when it comes to supplying goods in the organization. So you might find you will settle with one or more suppliers, and you will raise purchase order at the moment that you will be requiring to have the goods. Assuming that maybe you have settled with only one supplier, once you have done the quote analysis, you will do something we call, you will raise a purchase order. You will raise a purchase order, and abbreviation, this one we said we call it PO, and you might find it being referred to as LPO in our localities. Then once the purchase order has been placed, it has to be approved. Remember, this is a legal document. Once it has been approved, it is issued to the supplier, and the supplier will deliver goods on our premise. And after delivering goods, we will be able to receipt the goods through a document called goods receipt note, brackets GRN. And again, under PO, we can be able to receive or do the purchase returns. We do the purchase returns for goods probably that has been received without a good condition from the customer. From the supplier, sorry. Again, we have the AP. Under AP, we maintain the purchase invoices, primarily purchase or supplier invoices primarily, and then we do payments. We do purchase payments. We do the purchase payments. Okay. Then under GL, we do financial reports. Okay. Under cash management, we maintain bank accounts. And also we do bank statement, click on yes, sir. Then under accounts receivables, usually maintain sales stroke customer invoices. And we do customer receipts. Okay. Then we have order management, where we have said we record the order before we book it. Once we have confirmed that we have items in our inventory, we go ahead and do book. We book the sales order. Once the sales order has been booked, the inventory team will do pick release, that is releasing the goods from the sub-inventory to the staging area, whereby the goods will be loaded to the vehicle so that they can be shipped to the customer's destination. So we call it pick release. Then after pick release and goods have been loaded to the vehicle and the vehicle has departed to the customer's destination, we record ship confirm. Under fixed asset, this one we said we usually maintain fixed asset. We call them assets. Normally the application is called asset or Oracle assets. In finance, you might find you have two classification of assets, that is current asset and fixed asset. But when it comes to the application, we normally refer fixed asset as assets. Then we do calculate the depreciation. So basically that's how we can combine the two processes so that we can be able to see a bigger picture of how they can communicate. There are some will never communicate at all, like order management. You might find probably it will never communicate to cash management. Okay, there's no way it will communicate to cash management. Again, AR, it will not communicate to fixed assets unless it's under some scenarios whereby probably we are selling an item or an asset in the organization. But remember, this is not the primary goal for the organization of doing the business of selling assets or the assets. So you might find there may not need to have the recording of fixed asset sales we call it disposal, communicating to account receivable. So it's very good and it's very much important as you continue to learn, you understand these cycles, because the more we get deeper into the system, without you having a proper foundation of understanding these flows, it might be become more complex to you. So it's very good. If there is any question on this flow, please kindly ask it.
So smart.
I can see someone is saying they can't open the
question.
link on WhatsApp chat. Did she or he manage to log in? Probably. Let me check.
I think not yet.
Abigail, did you manage to join? No problem. We'll share the recordings. Don't worry. So, is there any question so far, team? Hello.
Yes, none from me.
All right. So that one being said, allow me to bring another bit of discussion regarding the application. And we need to discuss instance with the user. So in our learning process, there are things that we can't ignore when it comes to interacting with the application or interacting in this session of learning. And one of it is the application. The application, and I believe I had mentioned something yesterday, although I never went very much deep regarding the application. And
you seem to be sharing a different screen while we are stuck there.
Okay, let me see. And now, are you able to see the application sheet?
Yes, yes.
Thank you for that, Dennis. So, when it comes to the application, there is something we need to understand so that we can have an overview on what an application is. So, it's even bigger. Payment. These are forms, payment form, invoice form. So what happens is that when we talk about application, we usually say that an application is a collection of relevant forms and pages. It's a collection of relevant forms and pages that shares data for mutual goals. For instance, a good example is when we have like a supplier who is supplying goods to our organization, we will not maintain the supplier information on the same page or in the same form or in the same window where we maintain this information of that supplier's invoice. So we'll have different probably interaction with application, but this information is somehow linked together for the purpose of data sharing. For instance, if for instance we have supplier ABC, okay, this supplier ABC gives us or have already supplied goods in our organization, and now they are demanding a payment. So they will definitely go ahead and issue an invoice. Okay. So already you'll find we have that information maintained in our system of supplier ABC. But this information will be maintained under the supplier page or the supplier window. But the moment now we receive the invoice letter, we will not maintain that information on that supplier invoice under the supplier page, but we'll have a different form whereby we will maintain that information for the invoice. So that's why we are saying an application can refer to a collection of forms and pages which have common relevancy when it comes to sharing data. And this one you'll be able to see in the system. And again, this data, it is being stored in the database. Just like I had mentioned yesterday, we can have an image of a database, okay, whereby the moment you create a supplier, let me reduce these ones so I can have a good visibility. So what I'm trying to say is that this is our database. Okay. And the moment we receive or we vet a new supplier and we have decided to maintain that supplier in our database, we'll have to use the supplier page to key in the information of the supplier and click save so that it can trigger storage in the storage of the supplier information in the database. The same case, once now we receive the invoice after this supplier has supplied goods, also we'll have to save that invoice information through the invoice form, but in the same database. So in an application, you'll find there is a combination of, apart from now the forms, there is an additional element of the database. And also, once now we have stored this information in the database, you will find in the database we said that we have data is being stored in tables, which are in forms of rows and columns. You'll have tables here storing our data. Okay. So this is maybe data stored, various data stored there. And after we store this data, we'll still, so this is the application. Okay. This is the database. And after storing this data, we don't just store it there and wait it to continue maturing. There's a time we may need to pull some reports. Okay. Pull some reports. And these reports, we will query them from the database, from the data stored here. We pull the report so that probably we can use it for the purpose of making decision in an organization. So reports are very important. And it is very, very much to know that when we are learning this process, we will be interacting with the application, whereby I've talked about the collection of relevant forms and pages, which shares data for mutual goal. And also, we will be interacting with the database, whereby this information has to be stored in the database. And at the end of the day, there is some use or some conversion or some manipulation of this data in the database that has to be done so that we can be able to receive some reports. And again, it is important to know that I mentioned about the various resource persons that you may find interacting with them in this level of different scenarios based on these three features. That is the application, database, and the reports. And one of the key personnel that I mentioned is about the technical consultant. And also, without forgetting the functional consultant, who is probably you. There is the DBA, and there is the project manager, PM. So the project manager is the overall for making sure that things are working between these three consultants. If a functional consultant requires a technical or has a technical requirements, and probably they are trying to reach out to the technical person, and the technical person is telling them, hey, I'm busy with other engagements which are more, more urgent. So the functional consultant can reach out to the project manager and tell them, I have this requirement from the client, and it's delaying because I've tried to reach out to the technical consultant and they are not available. It's the work of the project manager to know where they will get the resource or the technical resource and channel that resource to the functional consultant so they can be able to achieve the client request or the client's need. Again, we have the DBA. DBA is the one who is the overall for making sure that the database has been defined and has been loaded accordingly. Again, we have the functional consultant who will understand the front end of the application more than the technical consultant and more than the DBA and even more than the project manager. In some scenarios, you might find the project managers knows some of these things because probably they started as a functional consultant or maybe a technical consultant, something of the sort, and they have gone up the radar. So those are very important terms you need to understand as we continue learning and as we continue to get deeper into the training. Is there any question? So that's about the application. So the application, you can say, is the combination of all this. But from the front end, the moment that you are interacting, or the bigger part that you interact with, that's what most people will refer as the application. Just like what we discussed yesterday of our WhatsApp application, you can be able to key in your information, you can be able to chat from the front end, but you usually don't ask yourself, where does this information get stored? For instance, if you send someone a picture, do you think that picture is only there that you're seeing it on your front end? No, that picture has been stored somewhere in a language that only the database can understand. And from now there, you can retrieve that picture again. And that's why you can be able to get to see that picture more and more time because it's stored under a certain database. So I hope this idea is bringing you to the picture of some of the things that we'll be interacting with for the purpose of understanding the flow of data. Mostly what we are doing is all about managing data in the best process. So if you have to talk about financials or Oracle financials, you have to understand that it's not just a financials, but financial data that you'll be managing and you'll be dealing with. I hope that one is clear. Then we come to something we call the instance. It's very much important. So, and when you talk about an instance, I may pose a question whether you can give me an example of what does an instance means. Let's have an interaction or any other word. Someone, please. You can post it on the chat. What is an instance? Or what kind of another word that you can use instead of an instance? No one has an idea. So what happens is when you're using, someone who has communicated here, occurrence. Yeah, it can be an occurrence. Any other one? So it's something that is happening. Okay, so it's something that kind of repeating itself. And you are right. You're very right, Ruth. So what happens is that when we talk about an instance, what happens is you usually find the person that we call the data, DBA, sorry. DBA, who is the database administrator, is the person who we have said will be able to set up the database so that it can be ready to receive data that we are keying in, or the user will be keying in, whether it's employee information, whether it is invoices, whether it's stock information. This database has to be prepared before we start using the application to store that data. So in this regard, an instance, Oracle or any other company that's dealing with applications will share a copy. Oracle shares a copy. A copy of what? Their product. Okay. For instance, now everyone has a WhatsApp application on their phones. Majority of the people have them. So that WhatsApp application is one and the same. Only that we are using a copy of the original or the solution or the product that WhatsApp owner has created. I hope that one is clear. Like you have WhatsApp, I have WhatsApp, maybe your friend, your relative has WhatsApp. This WhatsApp is still the same. It has the same features. It has the same, user interface. The functionalities are the same. So what happens is the owner of WhatsApp has the capability of making a copy of this product, which is WhatsApp, to be used by different people. So the same case applies when it comes to the Oracle database. A database can be made a copy. And what do I mean when I'm talking about of a copy? For instance, let's say this is our instance. And in this instance, we can be able to have our database. Okay. In this database, we have different applications. We have GL, we have AP, we have AR, we have cash management, we have order management, we have PO, that is purchasing, we have HRMS, okay, human resource management. In this database, there are so many applications, okay, name them. So what happens is, Oracle created this database with all the functionality, that is the product, the whole product, that is the application, the database, the reports capability. All this was created as a single product. But on this single product, you can be able, or the owner can be able to replicate and make as many copy of the same product that they have. So the name instance comes from the word, from the fact that this is a copy of the application, the database, and the reports, the standard reports that are there, are a replication or a copy of what the vendor already has. I hope that one is clear. It is the instance means it's a copy of another product. So this is possible. You can be able to get as many copies as possible. And I'll give you an example with what we usually work with. When I talk about what we usually work with, you'll find, allow me also to illustrate. You'll find our DBA has come and installed the database. Okay. And in our database, we have this product or these applications which you can be able to replicate in the same database. And this database, we can be able to replicate as many copies as possible or as we wish. Okay. So what happens when we are doing the system implementation? We don't work only with one instance. We don't only work with one copy of the application and the database and the reports. We usually produce several based on the requirement, but primarily we usually use 3. And these 3 are for which purpose? 1, allow me to remove this. I know now you understand why I was putting this naming of the application or the modules. We call them modules, we call them the responsibility. You will come to understand why we call them, modules or responsibility or application. So the first copy that we can have of the instance is the instance for development. Call it development instance. the development instance, this is whereby we will do the building, we will do the customization. Let me introduce another term, which is customization. Okay. Customization is whereby, or even before I go to the customization, let me first of all finish with the instance. We have the development instance, we have the test instance. This one we call it test instance. Remember, it's a copy of the original product, and we have production instance. All right. So what is the difference between these three? And I've said primarily when you're doing the implementation, you should work with this kind of three instances or three copies of, you can call it database. Yeah. So for the development is for the technical consultants. Okay. The technical consultants, what do they do? When we have these applications here and we have the database, there is something I said that the technical consultants works with, and it's called SQL. The SQL language, one thing or one of the functionality I said that it helps to achieve is the customization or creation of data in the database. But that's not the only one. When it comes to manipulation of data to achieve certain reports, and the reports, we usually have seeded reports, call them seeded, or we have custom reports. Okay. Seeded reports, these are reports that comes with the system from the vendor, from the owner, that originally when the owner was developing or was coming up with this product, they come up with these seeded reports. And seeded, sometimes we refer to them as seeded or standard. Okay. When we refer, or you find someone referring to standard or seeded, they're talking about the original thing. For instance, it can be a seeded report, it can be a seeded form, it can be, a seeded functionality, meaning it has not enhanced after having been released by the vendor. So one of the key work of the technical consultant is to do customization. Okay. They customize reports to suit the requirements of a client so that they can be able to achieve their business goal. It could be a certain report, because the system can come and it is missing some business process based on the nature of the business of a certain client. And that client will tell you that, hey, I need a report that can be able to produce total sales versus something else. I need a report that can be showing like what time did the employees reported today. I need a report that can be showing like a daily payment of all the payments that were done yesterday. So this kind of reports, you may find they are not standard. They are not coming with the system. They need to be customized, or they need to be developed. So the work of the development instance is for the technical consultant to work and develop those kind of customization. And once they have been developed, they are transferred to the test instance. And the test instance, this is where the functional consultants comes in. The functional consultants comes in here, and this is purely for testing solutions. Okay? Purely for testing solutions that have been developed under the development instance, and they have been migrated to test instance. Once the testing has been done, this testing is not only for the functional consultant, it's for the functional consultant and the users. Let me add this one here. And the users. Why? The moment you have received a requirement from a business, there is a certain user who will be communicating to you, telling you that I need this certain report. I need to see a feature that probably I can key in some information under a certain form. This user, once you have received that requirement and you have shared it with the technical consultant, you will go back. Remember, I talked about requirement gathering as one of the functionality of the functional consultant. That requirement gathering is nothing else but that requirement you are taking from a user. You take that requirement, you communicate it to the technical consultant. The technical consultant do the development and tell you that the development is ready and I have migrated it under the test instance. Can you please test? So there are two types of testing. There is internal testing, whereby as a functional consultant, you will test that solution on your own and come up with conclusion whether it has fulfilled the requirement that you had shared with the technical consultant. Once it fulfills that requirement, now you can go ahead and call the user and tell them, hey, the requirement that you gave, the solution have been completed, and you can now come and or go ahead and test it under the test instance. So I hope that one is clear. Once the test has been done by the user now will confirm formally and tell you that the solution is okay, I've tested and I'm comfortable. Kindly migrate it to the production instance. Now we have the production instance. Under the production instance, this one, it is for live recording. Okay, this is for the business, call it for the business. And it's for live recording. Okay, so anything that has been confirmed by the user under the test instance, you have to migrate it to the production instance so that the user can now start using it in an official or formal way doing their businesses. Sometimes you might find we call this production instance live instance. It's because that's where you find the legit transaction of the business. In these other instances, you can test anything. You can test anything, whatever you imagine. You can create you can put any data that you feel like you can try to test and see what it will produce. But when it comes to the live or production instance, we don't joke with it. Actually, as a consultant, you don't, even if you find a user has logged in the production instance and they are probably doing other things around them and you need them to do something or to test, one of the things you might find is that you might find a user who is very busy and you want them to test something for you so that you can close that issue and migrate it to production. In such scenario, you might find a user who will tell you do something for me under production instance. Never dare to do anything. Never dare to do anything in production instance, because The moment you will mess with production instance, there are so many legal actions can be taken on you based on the, assuming that the user might say that you are the one who did it. Remember, this is production instance is for live recordings for the business. So even if the user tells you, click for me this, or can you go back, never dare to touch it. Ask them, confirm, you have logged in which instance? Is it test or is it production? And with that, you can now be able to safeguard yourself and also even look professional when you're handling the user and also the system. So I hope I have given the differences and you have gotten it between the technical consultant, the development instance, test instance, and production instance for the purpose of understanding and for the purpose of knowing to which level should you go. The technical consultant and the development instance, sometimes you might find this instance is down and there's something you want to really confirm so that you can sort the user who is experience some issue under production instance. So you can quickly work also with the development instance. It's not like it's completely locked out to functional consultant. You will be having access to it. But remember, primarily, the work of this instance is for the purpose of testing. It's not for for developing, it's not for testing. But if the test instance is not working, and you can be able to check that thing on the development instance, you should not hold back. You should quickly check if the solution is okay or you have been able to identify the issue. You can quickly advise the business or the user so that you can fix that issue under production instance. Any question? In our case of learning, we will not be working with the 3 instances because we don't have a business, we don't have much of development, but we'll have much of configuration and setups. And 1 instance is enough. 1 instance is enough, but there are so many things that we'll discuss on how you can be able to tell whether you can be able to fix an issue in the level of a certain instance. Because, for instance, what you are supposed to know is that whether we have test instance and development instance, under the production instance, data continues to be recorded. But you'll find the data that was recorded today, it was not recorded in the test instance and in development instance, but it is there. In other words, in production instance, you'll find we have current data. We have current data that is, it's continuous recorded by the business as it conducts its day in, day out businesses. So what happens is that if you happen to find a user has an issue in production instance, and probably this copy was done since it was created in the implementation time, it has never been refreshed. We usually say we can refresh the instance. What does refreshing the instance mean? The moment we have handled the production instance to the business, after now setting up, you will do the setup as a functional consultant. But the moment there is a time that now the setup will be complete and you have to handle the production instance to the business so that they can start doing the daily recording of their transaction. That moment they start recording their transactions, you will find these other instances, there are no much update of data that is going on, unless the non-formal data that you as a user, I mean as a consultant, you might want to work with. For instance, you may want to test whether you can be able to control maybe VAT in payables, or you can be able to apply or create a withholding tax invoice in payables. You will come and create an invoice under test instance, but that invoice will not be created in production instance. So the data that will be here might differ with the data that, not even might differ, will always differ with the data that is in the production instance. So what happens is, when we need to fix an issue that is in production instance, there are sometimes we will need to tell the DBA, okay? We'll need to tell the DBA, hey, we need a fresh instance. A fresh instance means that data that is in that fresh instance, it is very close to the data that we have in the production instance. And with that, it will help you to troubleshoot the issue that has been reported in production instance. So there are sometimes you'll find you will keep on refreshing the instance. You might find you are telling the DBA, hey, I need the test instance being refreshed, or I need the dev instance be refreshed. That, having said that, they will be knowing that you need them to have a copy of production pasted in the either the instance that you have requested, either test or dev. This helps you now to work with the current data that will be able to troubleshoot the issue under the production instance. I hope that one is clear. And sometimes we call it clone. So we can say cloning of the instance. Cloning of the instance. Okay. Is there any question? If there's no question, tomorrow we'll look about the user, who is a user, and how the user come in to a point that they can now start working with the application. After now looking at the user, we can be able to see the overview of how the application looks like, and I will explain a few bits of the structure of the application, so that when you start working or practicing, you can be able to move without a lot of challenge. Any question? So if there's no question, let's meet tomorrow, same time, and we proceed. So thank you, and have a good night. Bye-bye.